Good evening, class. We're back for another round, 2 days before Christmas. Okay, let me get this thing straight. All right, it looks good. Okay, what we're going to do tonight for this video is to cover page 10, which was your assignment for tonight. I hope you all got a chance to look at it. And let's take a look. So if you get out the page 10, downloaded to you last week, the other night actually, and we'll go over it. Now remember what I said the other night. These pages are off because all of these questions were looked up using the previous book, which was around until a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And as I'm double cross-checking my own pages, I'm discovering that 20 pages is about right. So they're off by about 20. So let's take a look at the critical level of Walcott. And you'll find that there's a definition of a critical level on page 86, which is the same on the old definition page and the new one in two different books, does match up. So up to page 86, which is table 8, you'll find this, excuse me, not table 8, definitions is correct. I think it's section, whatever it is, section 8. In any case, that one did line up. Now the other one, the more detailed explanation is on page 160. The one I had down there was 181, so it's off by 21 pages, and it's table 8, and it's got their flush valve. Okay, so I'm sorry, it's got ball cock on that. All right, those of you rookies, if we have any rookies that's brand new in the trade this year, and you don't do any work on water closets, toilets, the ball cock is a device that lets the water into the bowl. Right, the new ones, the replacement ones are usually Fluid Master, and they're usually, I think, black and gray. If you ever see one that's like a light brown, I haven't seen any of them around in years, but if you see them, those are the illegal ones, right? They're not legal. They're not anti-siphon. Okay, so question number 81, the answer was 1 inch. You can read up on it on page 160. What is the definition for it is on page 86, and the table that it refers to is also on 160. What's the maximum flush for new toilet? Okay, again, you've got the answer here. The answer is 1.6, which has been code now since about, I would say, about 1989. They gave the one-piece toilets a break, and they let them go for an extra year. I guess there was some design problems to those old one-piece, because the height of the tank is so low in relation to the bowl. They didn't flush that well. They swirled around a lot, and with only 1.6 gallons, they had a hard time, I guess, getting it to work right. In any case, it's code now of any new water closet is 1.6 gallons. Before that, just for your information, I believe it was 3.5, and before that, before my time, it was 5 gallons, which is a lot of water for one flush. And now that was page 170 is what I had down there. That was true with the old book. With the new book, it's page 149. The section is correct, 1014. It's 3B1B. Get used also to dealing with these subparagraphs. I mean, this is, when you start reading this book, you're going to see more subparagraphs than you've ever seen in your life. This 3.1b, I've never seen any other book that had so many subparagraphs. So get used to reading that. Maximum flush for urinal. Okay, all this went into effect at about the same time that it did for the water closet. Maximum flush for urinal is 1 gallon. That also is on page 149. And it's right after the flushometer for the water closet. And it's 3B1B. And the water closet was 3B1A. Okay, moving on. When can a direct connection be made between a potable and a non-potable water supply. Now, just as a quick refresher, potable water, which looks like potable, but it isn't, means water that you can drink. Right? You can put it in a pot. You can drink, you can bathe, you can wash. I mean, of course, you can wash. You can do anything with it. It's legal. Right? Not a problem. Now, if it's got high iron content, you might leave rust rings in your toilet. Might even stain the clothes, although I'm not sure about that. And then hard water, for what I hear, it doesn't really soap up very well, but that water is still potable water, right? It's annoying potable water, but it's fit to drink. Okay, the question was, when can a direct connection be made between a potable and a non-potable water supply? The answer is, of course, never. And personally, I haven't worked in any like science labs or anywhere, factories or anywhere where this could be a problem. Where we see it all the time is in private homes, right? Where they have hot water heating systems, whether it's gas or oil. You have your makeup water coming in. Now, just as a refresher, we've talked about it this year. I'm not sure if I talked with both classes, but remember, coming into a boiler, you always have a shutoff feeding the boiler. Then you have the pressure backflow preventer, right? Now that's plumbing. So you got the shutoff, backflow preventer. Everything after the backflow preventer is part of the heating system, right? The pressure reducer is next. So it goes shutoff, backflow preventer, pressure reducer. That's the start of the heat, which you don't need a license for. So technically, if you were putting in a heating system without a license, like you can do it right now, you should call somebody to hook it from the cold water to the pressure reducer, right? Now, in real life, does that happen? Not usually. The heating guys, maybe some of them do, but from what I've seen, most of them just connect that on their own, and they'll install a hot water system, hot water heating system. But that's an example of a possible cross connection. The water system in the boiler is very, very dangerous if it ever got into the potable supply, right? So in every house, we should have a backflow preventer. Now, some of you who have worked in houses that were probably, or systems that were probably installed before. Now, my experience, we always had the backflow preventer. Now, I'm talking like 1970 forward. Before that, I'd say probably in the mid 60s on back, there was no backflow preventer. Sounds pretty risky, and it was. All they had is a pressure reducer. Now, did the pressure reducer act like a backflow preventer? I don't know. I never heard of a cross connection causing any problem, but it could. So if you ever put in a heating system and it doesn't have a backflow preventer, even if you're not going to have it inspected, whatever you did there, inspected, put it in. You really need a backflow preventer, and it protects the owner, protects you. Okay, so be sure you put that in. Let's see what else we got here. All right. Now, what I did is in my own sheet, which you have in yourself there, it was on page 178 in the old book, which you can see, and I found that the same information is on page 157. Okay, so check it out, and just be aware of it. All right, the next one, page number 85. How do you determine the size of a temperature and pressure relief valve on hot water? Okay, now my experience has been that just about any water heater that I've ever put in required at least a 3/4 TMP valve. I think maybe once or twice in my life I did something that was bigger than that. The easy thing is you just match up with the tap in the tank, right? Now you guys have all done water heaters, I'm sure. Have you seen anything beside 3/4? Probably not. So if you've got something small enough that it's under 15,000 BTUs, I can't imagine anything that small, it would be 1/2 inch. Now the only and I've never seen one, a TMP valve that small. Now the only time you're gonna, now some of you guys have seen this, but I'm about to tell you. If you're doing a well pump and you have an expansion tank in the basement, and then you have that tank cross, they call it, with the pressure gauge on it, and it's got the pressure relief valve. That's a little tiny little half-inch pressure relief valve. Not a T&P. It's just a P, just the pressure relief. Right, to handle up to, I believe they trip out at about 75 pounds. Some are adjustable. Okay, and you should be setting your pressure for around 40, 60. 60 is as high as I would go. And that's an example of a half-inch relief valve, but it's not a T&P. It's just a pressure relief. On a water heater that you're going to be that you deal with all the time, they're almost always 3/4. It can handle up to, and it mentions right here, 200,000 BTUs. That's bigger than most boilers. So don't worry about it. Unless you're doing something for a commercial job, you don't have to worry about that. And if it was commercial, um, I'm not sure if it would be included with the heater. I know they used to be with the smaller heaters. But you just match the tap and check out. In fact, we're going to talk about it right now. The information on the T&P tag. Now, again, I know I talked about it with one class, but let's cover it. So all of you will have it. On a T&P, you have a metal tag, which is quite small. It's only about 1 inch by 1 inch. Small writing. What's on the name? On the tag. All right. Metal. Okay, this is the metal tag. It's on all the water heaters. It's going to have the manufacturer's name. Okay. It's going to have the BTU capacity. Okay, that would be like they said here, 250, right? Of this valve. It'll have the element length. Okay, now I know I mentioned it this year. The element is the T&P valve. Right? It's got that lever up here. Then down here, it's got this rod that comes down. All right, like that. Most of them are 8-inch. Goes in the top of the tank. Okay, that's the usual. If you have one for a gas water heater, it goes in the side of the tank. That doesn't work. I tried it once to see what would happen, and I only got into about that far. And then this was hitting the baffle in the middle. I mean the smoke pipe in the middle of the water heater. Right, the flue. Actually, the flue is the right name for it. So that's why you have the short one. So the 4-inch would be this one minus half its length. Look like that. And it will say right on it, that it will say 4-inch. Like this. And I know I tell this story every year, so some of you might have heard it. One time I working in Dartmouth, that tough inspector I told you guys about once, maybe put in vents where nobody else in this world would have ever asked me to put vents in because I had to tear the walls out to do it, remodeling. He actually looked at the damn tag. He looked at this tag, and he saw that it was a 4-inch element, which I'm sure would have worked fine. And I had it in the top of the tank. Nope. Take it out. Now, did he come back for a reinspection? I don't recall. This is like 40 years ago, so I don't remember. But it will say which element on the tag itself. Okay? Now, another thing it will say is the size, the relief pipe length, size, excuse me. Usually it's 3/4 inch. Same size as the right here. 3/4 where it threads in, right here. And then 3/4 inside, female, right? By the way, how far does a relief pipe go? If it's coming out sideways, you got to angle it down. One time I was putting in it was actually a boiler, and I was fast filling it, and I was trying to do too many things at one time. And just as I walked by the boiler, this let go, and it got me good. But fortunately, it wasn't 180, 190, and because I had the fast fill lever up, it was coming in above 30 pounds. So the relief valve on the boiler which looks like this, but doesn't have the element. It tripped out, and there's no warning. When it trips, it just bang, it's out. So don't ever leave a water heater, even if you don't take a permit out, which you of course should. Bring that pipe down like this. Okay, 1 foot to the floor like that. That's the maximum. Okay, so bring your relief pipe down within a foot of the floor. Okay, I should have a checklist for all these things. I think maybe one more thing. B2 capacity element relief pipe manufacturers. That might be it. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of information on that tag, right? And if you got a tough inspector, don't be sneaky. Might get you. All right, now what happens if somebody stupidly reduces the size of the relief pipe? Okay, this happened to me. Some genius reduced it down to 3/8 OD. So it was some kind of bushing arrangement here, but it bushed it right down like that. And then it went up to the ceiling, across the room, and into a sink, an old laundry sink. So, of course, after this was on a boiler now, not on a water heater. After 20 years, 30 years, who knows? I guess it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. And the gauge was locked on 17 pounds. In fact, when we took the boiler out, it was still 17 pounds. In other words, the gauge was like frozen on that. Don't count on a gauge to save you. And the pressure reducer coming in wasn't working. The water just came in, and full pressure. Somehow it came in as full pressure. The expansion tank was waterlogged. It was the old style, like a barrel up in the floor joist. Those of you who've done heat, I'm sure have seen them. They're about double or triple the size of the little X-Trol tank that you normally use. And had nothing going for it. And the boiler blew up in my face. I was standing right there with the owner, and the thing blew up. And that's not an exaggeration. We didn't get hurt because of the sheet metal. Fortunately, it was still on the boiler. And the cast iron sections, it was a modern boiler. It wasn't a snowman, you call them, the ones asbestos. This was probably in the 1970s, and the boiler might have been 10, 15, 20 years old. I don't know. But it was definitely in the 70s before my father was in the hospital, so I remember the year. Just about the time I got my license. Anyway, it blew up, but the jacket held the sliver of cast iron that shot out at us. It was shaped like a long needle-shaped thing. It actually blew out towards us. So how much pressure was that? The boiler was running, and the reason we had it running is because it was dripping, and I couldn't get boiler seal. I couldn't pump it in. My pump wasn't working. I should have realized my pump wasn't working because the tremendous pressure in the boiler. In any case, if you see something that looks a little shaky, don't like this. A gauge that doesn't change pressure when you turn the heat on. When the gauge pressure should be going up a few pounds and it's not happening, or going down if you're draining water out of it. Be aware of all that, because this boiler, every bad thing that could happen came together on this job, and we were lucky nobody got hurt. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's see. So we got the T&P valve on our water heater, the tag, right, which you should know. You could be asked a question on this. Be aware of it. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on that tag. I don't think so. All right. When that boiler blew up, I do remember the sound. It was some dust. It was a lot of water. Obviously, the whole boiler emptied out in a matter of a couple of seconds. And the owner said, "What does this mean?" I said, "It means you need a new boiler." And he was a good guy. He was actually a very good guy. It wasn't my fault. The gas company had already checked it out. Some other company had been there. My father asked me to check it. He was in a hospital in Boston at the time. He says, "Go check this out." And it's heat, so you don't need a license for it. So anyway, just be careful. All right. In case I forget, when I get back to business, remember when you're doing any of this work, if you're working, first of all, anybody who has a license that you know and says that they didn't work, they didn't do any moonlighting at all, either their memory is slipping or they're not telling the truth. Most guys have done some moonlighting, and just how much um, depends on the person. Another thing, okay, which I don't want to forget, is I knew an electrician who had a business in Little Compton. This is going back when I was an inspector there, and he was a good guy, good electrician, good businessman. And he told me that if any of his guys, he had a good sized shop. He said if any of his guys did side work, he fired them. He was tough. He said the only exception was if they wanted to work for their mother. I never heard that one before. But my advice to you is, um, you probably know where you stand with this boss. Maybe you don't. But if you're going to do any serious side work, like you want to take care of a friend here or a relative there, and you kind of keep it low, very low key, okay. But remember, when you're buying from the supply houses, this is a small community. We all know each other. The clerks there see you coming in after hours, getting all this stuff, and might even be innocently some comment might be made, or somebody else in the trade might see you in there buying something. You're probably best to let your boss know that you're going to be doing some side work, and then stay very far away from anything to do with your boss. And most bosses are a lot more understanding than that guy I was telling you about, uh, to a point. If you're dragging in the morning and you're half dead from your nighttime business, that's not going to last long. Okay, and obviously don't go anywhere near any of your boss's customers. And once in a while, now be ready for this one. It didn't happen to me because I was, I worked for my father, so they knew people knew better than to ask me. But they did ask people that worked for him because he told me they would ask them, like, hey, if I got something in the future. In other words, they wanted to hire the guy that worked for my father because he obviously could do the job for less. Um, don't do it. Okay, stay clear of your boss's customers. Okay, uh, next one. Number 86. What's the working pressure on a tank that is tested to 180 psi? Okay, now I covered this with you last week. I believe it was last week, the week before, last class. And it's somewhere, I did not locate it. I looked quickly, but I didn't see it. It's in there somewhere. See if you can find it. And if you find it, or if you found it, actually, if you did find it, since you should have had it, should have tried to find it before this class, let us know when we go live. All right. But this has been the standard as long as I've been in the trade. If the working pressure on the tank is 180 psi, oh, I'm sorry. What is the working pressure if the tank is tested to 180? Or I start to say it wrong. Okay, so the tank is tested up to 180. They actually test a little more than that, but 180 is what we need to know. It can actually run at 90 pounds per square inch. And in the book, on probably on page, looks like about 164, 163, on the 9C, it does mention that they figure the tank is rated for the pressure, like coming in from the street. My guess is it's rated for like 80 pounds. Now, this is one that I want you to never forget. The maximum working pressure, legal pressure in Massachusetts for water is 80 psi. Okay? 80 psi at the meter when it comes in. Now, if you go up on the third floor, you're going to lose 0.434 pounds per foot as you go up, or works out to a little more than 2 pounds. For every 2 feet you go up, you lose 1 pound of pressure. So if you go up from the basement to the second floor, you're going to lose about maybe 10 pounds pressure. But if you got pressure that's anywhere near 80 in the basement, my advice to you, even if it's a bit under 80, is put in a pressure reducer, because at 80 pounds, Anybody shuts a valve off fast, a fast closing valve, they call it, like a ball valve, pipes are going to be banging. Some of you guys have experienced this, I'm sure. Actually, the pipes will start jumping. It wears out parts, washers, ball cocks in toilets, things like that. They're really not up to that kind of pressure. All right, so put in a pressure reducer over at the meter and get that pressure down around 50, 55 is good pressure. Give them all the water they need, but it won't be too much. Okay, it's actually roughly what you'd set a well pump for. We set a well pump somewhere around 40, 60, because the well pump is always moving. The pressure is always going up or going down, right? It's going up when the pump is on, it's going down when it's shut off. And 40, 60 is a good pressure. Okay, but I would not forget that. Working pressure is half the test pressure. Okay, so 86 and 87, it's the same question. They just reversed it. And then they did print. Test pressure is 2 times the working pressure. Okay, number 88. What's the minimum size of underground waste piping? Okay, we've covered that this year, especially tier 2. All pipe that's underground has to be at least 2-inch, right? This is drainage waste pipe now, nothing to do with water pipe. So if you're running a drain underground, it's 2-inch. It's a bathtub, 2-inch. The vent for the bathtub, it's got to come off 2-inch. Now, where it breaks through the concrete, because that's what's usually under a floor when there's no basement, now you can jump up, take it down to 1.5 inch, or according to the book, you can take it down to 1.25 inches, right? Half the drain size. Now, I don't think anybody here uses 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch pipe out there. You can though, if you're in a jam where you got to like get it through in a very tight area, you can actually use 1.25 inch pipe. And I remember one time, in fact, it was in my own home. If you ever work in an old house, you got your studs lined up like this. In a very old home, a non-bearing wall, they turn the studs sideways. Some of you guys have probably seen this. Now the studs really are 2x4, but that means the wall is only 2 inches thick. And then with the plaster coming through the lath, those little sticks that they used to use, it's even less. So I remember what I did is I got up above in the attic and I, drilled through and I got a piece of 1.25 inch copper. Right? I think my father had a piece because even years ago, the stuff was expensive. And I used 1.25 inch for the vent, right? That normally we'd have used 1.5 inch PVC, but I just didn't have the room. And the 1.25 inch actually cut right through that plaster that was squished through from either side. So every once in a while, you have to get creative, and that was legal. There's nothing wrong with that. So remember, when you're working underground, regardless of what it is, whatever the fixture is, vents and drains are 2-inch. End of story. Okay, and also don't forget when you break through the concrete, you got to sleeve it. Okay, you want to use Sill Seal, that foam that goes on the top of the foundation. Knock yourself out. I used to use cardboard, right? And I'd make sure that my cardboard was high enough. I'd use like flaps on a box. It was high enough that if my guess on where they were pouring the concrete was off, it wouldn't matter because it would, I had plenty of cardboard. Also, when you're running pipe underground, when you never want the pipe to be in the concrete, right? When the pipe comes up through the concrete, it should be coming up straight. It shouldn't be buried in the concrete where it's making the bend. Okay? So when you're trying to figure out how deep you got to dig the trench, because who wants to dig a trench deeper than you have to? Figure out where you're going to be popping up and how deep you want to be. You can look at the sill, the footing. Usually that's the height of the beginning of the concrete is the top of the sill, right? The top of the footing, I call it the sill, top of the footing, and add like 3 or 4 inches to that. Okay, use that as a guide, and you can just measure up to the floor joist, measure down, and bring it out to where you're going to be working there, and you can drop a plumb bob down or something, and actually leave something on a string so you know the height that you want, and use that as a guide. You don't want to dig any more than you have to, but you definitely don't want to have your pipe in the concrete. You get it too far into the concrete. I saw a job that I took over because the heat that was underground, 3/4 copper, came up in the middle of slider, a glass slider. It was a like a raised ranch or something, and the pipe should have been on either side of the slider, but somebody got mixed up, I guess, and the pipe was coming up like between the doors, and I guess that didn't go over too well with the contractor or the owner. I never got the story on that, but I saw it when I took over the job. So be very careful that you're reading your prints right, if it's especially if they're pouring a slab. Okay, um, let's see, where are we here? Underground. Okay, we covered that question and then some. All right, the last thing on this page is on page 169. The new book is in 169. I have 190 there. So take a look at it. If you've got your book there, it's one time I'd like you to open it up and take a peek. All right, they actually have them what I would have done this one in reverse. Let's cover the 90 first, question number 90. It's called Table 2. Table 2 is, if I remember correctly, above Table 3. And this is the one you should use when you're out in the trade. Now, if you have this question on an exam, you're going to find that they'll give you the table. Now, the formulas for all the math that we started doing, and unfortunately, we still got a lot more to go. That they don't give you. Tables, yes. This is an easy table, and you should memorize it anyway. Um, if you look at the horizontal, you'll notice the numbers are slightly different than the vertical. For example, on the horizontal, take a look at 3-inch. I don't have the book right in front of me, but I remember this. It says you can go up to 34 fixture units. Now, if you figure a fixture unit, that would be a bathroom would be like a 5. It's actually, I believe, it's a 6, but they give you a bonus. Why, I don't know. So it's about a 5. It might be a 6. In any case, 34 could handle, what, 5 bathrooms? But the code prevents you from doing that. If you look on the horizontal, table 2, it'll say, I think it says 3-4, right where it says 3-inch. Right, 34, then you'll see a little 3-4. Look down, and underneath it'll say no more than 3 water closets on a 3-inch building drain, right, on a horizontal, and no more than 2 on one floor. Okay. Now, if you go down the bottom of the page or drop below that, you'll see on the stack it says 48, and it says the same thing, but I think there's 2 little stars there, but they say the same thing. You can only put 3 water closets on, even though it's 48 fixture units. You're limited to 3 water closets, 3 bathrooms, and only 2 on one floor. So if you got a huge ranch house, you get 2 bathrooms down at the end and 1 over here. Somebody's going to have that somewhere there. You're going to have 4-inch pipe, at least for one of those bathrooms. Okay? They're tough on that 3-inch. It's been that way as long as I can remember. I always wondered why they haven't changed the code when they changed the water flush like for water closet from 3.5 to 1.6. That's less than half. Same thing with the urinal. They cut way back on the water usage, but not on the piping size. I don't know if that'll ever change. Now, my advice to you is if they ask a question where they're talking about a stack, number 89, I circle a stack. You got it on yours because you got a copy of mine. The word stack means vertical. That's the 48. Don't forget that. And the other one where it says building drain, I didn't circle it, but you could circle that one. That's the other one, right? That's the left and right. In real life, yes, you're going to be dealing with the stack, but a lot of your job is going to be on the horizontal, or your branches are horizontal, especially a long branch where you got like a couple of toilets 10, 15 feet away. So rather than to get in trouble and call it a stack and the inspector say, no, that's a building drain, always go with the building drain numbers, okay? It changes them a little bit, but it really, I've never seen it be a problem. Like 1.5 inch can do, what, 3, 2-inch can do 6. On the horizontal, on the vertical, it's 4 and 8. 1.5 is 4, and 2 inches 8. But we never really go above that. Okay, it's never a problem. Okay, I'm going to cut it off right. Actually, that's just about right. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about business today. Do that on the other side. Okay, we'll see you shortly.